We have not heard from the FBI, and we have not heard from the Secret Service. Within crisis communication, always get your information out first. Always control the flow of information. And what we're seeing right now is there is no centralized flow of information, so everything is just popping everywhere. We have a rise of citizen journalism. One thing that's interesting, and I said this about a week ago, is everybody is holding the Zapruder film. It's not been suppressed. Everybody has their own version. There are different angles, there's different phones, there's so many different video clips that are out there, and the tail is wagging the dog. We're seeing these go from social media to regular media, and there's been no suppression of video footage, which there shouldn't be. There shouldn't ever be suppression of video footage. So that's what I think is so interesting with the citizen journalism, is they are telling the rest of the story. They are piecing timelines together. We're seeing it here on TikTok. We're seeing people take the timeline and this person's footage and that person's footage and the main feed and then this feed and then another piece of footage, and they're putting the timelines together to tell the story. And then we're seeing that go from citizen journalism to traditional media, where they're replaying it and say, hey, this was on TikTok. I find that flow very interesting. We're also seeing experts that are going out to Pennsylvania. We're seeing retired military. We're seeing retired snipers, retired police officers. People with expertise are going out there. They're doing their own investigations, and they're looking at triangulation, and they're looking at things going, no, this wasn't this angle. This could have been this angle and that angle. There's so many stories here and probabilities, and so they're looking at it. So we're getting different experts. Sometimes it's hard to believe because we don't know who the expert is on social media. They tell us credentials, but all you got to do is appear authentic on social media. You don't have to actually be authentic. So it's hard to tell what to trust and what to listen to. But here's the thing. Within crisis communication, we should have one central path. Starting at the top, we should have some ideas. Something has to be reported. When you silence and you don't say anything, you give rise to all the extra information, all the extra stories, and then you put doubt into people's minds. And that's hard, very hard to overcome, very hard to disprove. So what we see is everything to do with this case is a mess. Everything to do with security that day. Everything to do with communication within security. I was just listening to the news talk about the breakdown, and I'd heard this actually on TikTok at first, that different things were radioed to different tents and to different people, and messages weren't received, or they weren't clear, they didn't understand. So there's some communication breakdown that we're going to study that's in there. And what's interesting is nothing is being released, not even the security detail. The security detail plan cannot be released to the media. So that's real interesting, is we don't know what the detail plan is. We don't know what kind of breakdown. We don't know if this was some sort of verbalization breakdown from person to person over a CB. We don't know if this was equipment breakdown. We don't know anything. And without that centralized flow of information, we should have heard something by now. Even if it is tidbits that you release, hey, we've got to investigate this. Hey, we've got to investigate that. We're looking at this. We're looking at that. There's no centralized information coming from the FBI, coming from the Secret Service, and that's creating the breakdown. So as we're looking at all the videos, we're looking at all the ideas, man, that's what I want to hear from y'all. What have y'all learned this week from citizen journalism? What have you learned from footage? What have you learned from listening to different experts? Is it different from what you're hearing on the actual news? Is there a change? Are we seeing a change between the networks? Do we have certain networks reporting it one way, certain networks reporting it another, certain networks shockingly doing a really good job we didn't expect to? Have the politics been removed out of some of the reporting? Are we seeing the actual reporters doing their job of reporting the news and not putting in personal feelings and such? I know on some of the talk show, and that's what's tough, we have these news talk show, and that's not completely news, but the reporting, the actual news that we get, how are they doing? Hey, what do you think, man? How's the news doing? How are the citizen journalists doing that are out here on social media? What are you learning? What do you think about all this? What do you think about the breakdown? What do you think that we haven't heard any information? I can't wait to hear from y'all, and I want to break down some things further from a communication perspective. So like, share, comment, and follow.